My dear friends, it's glorious seeing you. In case we haven't been introduced before, I am Stephen Clements, a writer, a gamer, and an appreciator of big brain activities in general. On this channel, I perform dramatic story readings, I provide role-playing game and movie reviews, and I get to talk to interesting people. In this episode, we're going to be looking at Adventure Module HHQ1, Fighter's Challenge. Written for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition, this is part of the Challenge series, where the 4 main classes had a module dedicated to highlighting what makes them special, and designed for a single player character and their Dungeon Master to play through. This one is for fighter-type PCs of level 2 to 4, and it gives the player character fighter a time to shine and earn XP on a solo or side quest. Published in 1992, this was the first chronological entry into the Challenge series, and while I haven't played or ran this one, I absolutely look forward to doing that someday. Since the front cover has absolutely nothing to do with the adventure in the module, let's see what the back of the cover has to say. Decades ago, Sternheim was a thriving trade town on a major caravan route, but then disaster struck when a gold-laden caravan disappeared without a trace. Financially ruined, the town slipped into decline and now lies almost forgotten on a route that is seldom traveled anymore. Fighter's Challenge is a new type of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons adventure. It is designed especially for a Dungeon Master and 1 player, perfect for very small playing groups, for those times when the whole group can't get together, or for the player who wants his character to earn some extra experience. This adventure will provide hours of excitement for the DM and any warrior or multi-class fighter character of levels 2 to 4. You can unravel a 40-year-old mystery and restore the honor of Sternheim if you have the guts. So since that back cover blurb doesn't actually give us much in the way of specifics to go on as to what happens in this adventure, a brief spoiler-free take on this module is that it is good stuff with a dash of intrigue thrown in. Perfect for an ambitious fighter looking to rack up heroic deeds. This thing is a freaking campaign. It is not a little adventure, it is a campaign. Yes, we have a main quest and side quests to help flesh out the adventuring environment, but these side quests are fully fledged adventures in and of themselves. Taking a look at the credits page, we see this was written by John Terra. Getting into game design in 1985, Terra has covered a lot of intellectual property ground. A contributor to the world of Star Wars role-playing games, Dungeons & Dragons, Indiana Jones, Earth Dawn, Top Secret, and the obscure Torg game. The best list I found of his RPG writing was at rpg.net, and it's quite the list. His Facebook page looks fairly inactive, but he's got an enthusiastic LinkedIn. My internet search kept mentioning that he's a professional blogger, but I couldn't find this blog, so I'm not sure where to find more information on what he's up to. For editor, we actually have 2, Jacqueline Leeper and Steve Winter. It was hard to find much on Leeper, but RPG Geek did have this list of products she did work on, including the infamous City-State of the Invincible Overlord. Winter, on the other hand, has no shortage of RPG credits to his name. Beginning with TSR and Dungeons & Dragons in 1981, he's been involved with D&D ever since, and from what I can tell, every edition. D&D, Star Frontiers, Gangbusters, Top Secret, Marvel Superheroes, my favorite AD&D 2nd Edition book, The Complete Psionics Handbook, and on. Winter is still active on the RPG convention circuit. A signature of his style is a sense of humor, and when we get to Cleric's Challenge 2, you're really going to see that come out. The products he edits and the games he runs tend to be playful, so I highly encourage you to check him out and get in some games with him when he comes to a convention near you. Again, our cartographer is John Knecht. The area and dungeon maps are clear and easy to read, but unfortunately, they're arranged to be as far from the relevant sections as possible. Not the cartographer's fault, but it's not helpful. Looking at the map, this is a big area with lots of travel. The furthest quest point from the town is around 48 miles away, and the next furthest is 45 miles. So there is a lot of time the fighter will spend in the wilderness. With cars today, that's nothing, but on foot or on horseback, several days will be eaten up each way. That means lots of time exposed to random encounters and the elements of potential starvation. So this is a dangerous module from a survivalism perspective. Our cover by John and Laura Lackey is again completely unrelated to the adventure and kind of bland. The interior art is cobbled together from Carl Waller, Mark Nelson, and Jim Holloway. Sadly, I can't tell exactly who did which, but some of these are absolute fire, as you can see. Some of the art looks like recycles from other products, like the cover was, but some of this is clearly tailor-made for this adventure. If I read the signature right, these excellent pieces came from Carl Waller, and good on him. While I didn't find a dedicated website for Waller, I highly encourage you to do an image search for him because the hits keep coming. Now that we've covered the module in brief and who created it, let's get into the details, and that means there are going to be spoilers. If you keep watching past here, know that if any surprises or plots get spoiled for you, that's your fault, my dear friend. Since you will know the secrets, that means you need to run it for your table. Terra starts by pointing out the levels of fighter that this was designed for, and points out that this adventure can also work for clerics and thieves. However, he advises that wizards will not survive, and indeed, solo PCs will also not survive. Strange for a solo adventure. And as with the Cleric's Challenge, this module is also an early grave for players who run headfirst into combat and those who don't bring along NPC allies. There is no intro hook for the module, no attempt to explain why the fighter is there. It just puts the PC in the town of Sternheim and throws them into the action when the DM is ready. Chapter 1 gives the history of the town situation, key NPC write-ups, and town layout. Sternheim used to be a prosperous town until a large shipment of gold went missing 40 years ago. It was such a disastrous loss for the merchants involved. Neither they nor many other merchants could stomach that much risk and took their business elsewhere. A band of 8 adventurers went in search of the caravan to restore the town's honor. But 4 of them were killed, 4 of them survived, and found a mysterious stone sword, and nobody found the gold caravan. One survivor went mad and ran into the hills. One, a thief named Poot, kept the stone sword and continued to research the problem. And a third discovered the secret of the stone sword and the possible resting place of the caravan, and passed that information to his son Valdar before he died. His son Valdar is an impressive fighter who won favor in the town and earned his way into becoming captain of the militia. He uses this position of authority as leverage to work a deal with the local group of bandits, that he keeps them out of trouble and they cut him in for part of the action. The mayor isn't a threat to this arrangement, as he is a weak man Valdar keeps bullied into submission. Valdar has set the brigands on the search for the old tower his father told him may hold the gold, and they've recently found what they think to be the location. This module gets into the action fast, because already on page 2 we have the main enemy of the module and his scheme painted plain as day. If or when the PC confronts Valdar, he is in for a fight, as Valdar is a 7th level fighter stacked with magical weapons and armor. And did I mention he's the captain of the militia? Depending on the lead up to the confrontation, he may call out troops to help take out the PC, or send bandit assassins after him. There are plenty of NPCs that can fill the player in on town history and rumors, and Sternheim has plenty of mercenaries available for hire, because the PC will need the help. Be sure to tell your player they will need the help. There's also Saritha, a hot young woman eager to get the fighter out for a graveyard stroll. Oh, the kind of pickup line that would work on me. And she happens to be a werewolf. Ew. She's demure, quiet, and can't wait to get the PC out so her vampire father can drink his blood while she feasts on his bones. That is just my type. What? It's a fetish. Who doesn't like goth girls? The very next entry is an old woman named Mama Chipmunk, who will talk the fighter's ear off and will warn the PC against Saritha. She may not know why she doesn't trust her, but as we just talked about, her instincts are spot on. The healer shop sells the cheapest potions I've seen in any edition of D&D. Ominously, Terra takes the time to talk about her cures for lycanthropy and their odds of working, which makes me think we're going to see more of that in the module. Heck, we already got one lycanthrope, maybe there's more. An improved road leads to Sternheim, but heading east it has fallen into disrepair and is now known as the Forsaken Road. As you may guess, most of the adventure takes place on the Forsaken Road. After describing only 9 named locations, Terra has had enough beating around the bush and tosses the player into the action by having them walk in on 3 brigands jumping the thief with the stone sword we mentioned, Old Poot. For some reason, he had the stone sword on him. They stab him and try to escape with the sword. The text has Old Poot dying no matter what the PC does, but not before he sputters out some cryptic clues. I don't like the forced killing off of Poot, and there's no downside if he were to survive. The story won't be ruined. He's old and feeble, so he can't go help the PC on the adventure. And if the player character happens to have a healing potion that they use on him, it's just wasted, and nobody likes that. I'd let Old Poot live if the player goes to the trouble to try to save him. Maybe put him in a coma, and then he gets assassinated while the fighter is off doing part of the adventure, which would add to the drama. So who killed or who would assassinate Old Poot? If the player goes to Poot's house to look for clues, they will join the brigands already there tossing the hoarder's house. Now, it turns out Old Poot's a hoarder. If the fighter holds the house, the clues there implicate Valdar being behind the brigand attack. And Poot's notes say to go south of the Forsaken Road. There are magic items to be found in Poot's messy house, and other clues that can help with the side quest, so it is worth looking through the place. So Poot's clue to go south of the Forsaken Road, well, As you can see from the map, that's not the most helpful advice in the world, because there is a huge area full of difficult terrain south of the Forsaken Road. The module moves the main adventure on by assuming you head east on Forsaken Road, and the first planned encounter is a Don Quixote-esque challenge of honor. Poot's friend that went crazy and ran off into the wilderness, this is him, Niklos. Sitting in full plate armor atop a bony old nag, he challenges the fighter to a duel to let the PC use his road or turn back. The challenge isn't to the death, and the PC does have options here. The player only has to accept the challenge and act honorably in doing so in order to pass and prove his honor. If the fighter is female, Niklos will recant the demand and offer free passage to the lady, because he is a man of chivalry and good manners. Should the fighter defeat Niklos, which would be quite impressive, the old man will offer his services to the player. And this is a good deal, because Niklos is an 8th level fighter and can probably take any opponent in the module in a fair fight. Terra writes that this won't be a good deal because Niklos is crazy, but he doesn't take the time to show us why a murder hobo PC will have a hard time getting along with a batty old badass. Whether the fighter wins or loses, Niklos will offer the hospitality of his camp just a short distance from the road. There, the old man confesses he's never stopped blaming himself for failing to find the gold caravan and redeem the honor of Sternheim. And it's that guilt that drove him mad. He can add details to the histories the player may already know, including the fact that it was a red dragon that slew 4 of the original 8 members of his party. While they did injure it in turn, the mayor made the survivors swear to keep that encounter a secret, for fear that the presence of a red dragon in the area would panic everyone in the village beyond the point they already were. Further east, we do get a sign of where to go, in the form of a rock pile shaped like a dragon, which is facing south. At the sign, however, we also encounter Arnie the Wereboar in his human form. Sure, he's ugly and crude, but Arnie is covered in clues, wearing both a gold necklace associated with the missing gold caravan, and a stone shield that is the same style as the stone sword. He actually knows where to go, so if the player is smart and gives the Wereboar food, and especially if he gives him wine, he can be recruited as a powerful ally. If the fighter attacks him, well, that's now 2 kinds of lycanthropy the healer can try to cure. Arnie or some other means can lead us to the location where the stone sword and shield act as keys to the mystery of the missing caravan. After all of your traveling through the rough hills, you finally come upon a great stone door set into an especially craggy hillside. Loose rocks and rubble are strewn about the ground around the door. A life-size statue of an armored man is to the right of the door, with its back set against the hillside wall. The statue's right arm is upraised over its head, its right hand grasping empty air. The statue's left arm is lifted to its eye level, with the left forearm held out as if it bore an invisible shield. The stone objects fit the open hands of the stone statue of a soldier, and placing them into its hands opens a secret door that is otherwise completely unmovable. In the tunnel behind it, we find the painted mural of a red dragon flanked by other winged terrors attacking humans and taking their stuff. I find this funny, because this means either the dragon painted this herself or made someone paint it for her. Show off. Past the tunnel, we reach the courtyard, which gets this flavor text. Making your way around the rubble, you realize that you're standing at the bottom of a bowl-shaped depression with craggy hills on all sides. In the center of this area, the shattered, blackened remains of a stone tower stand before you. Judging by the amount of rubble at its base, it was once very tall. Now, all that remains is perhaps 1 story worth of building. It appears that the tower was ruined by a vast gout of flame. The most likely source of the flames lies beside the ruins. A huge red dragon, stretched out like a giant red cat, stares at you. So that flavor text box is written to screw with the player, because the player does not know that the dragon is just the dried carcass of one of the great beasts. So the dried dragon carcass is the remains of the red dragon who slew half of Poot's company. Turns out the group gave her a mortal wound which eventually finished her off back here at her lair. Over the decades, a tribe of Germlane and their giant rat friends have moved in and taken bites from the corpse, which is why half is missing. In the rubble, there is a ton of sweet treasure, so it is completely worth it to give it a thorough dig through. However, a lone PC or one with but a single ally will get jumped by the Germlane, who aim to knock them out and rob them. So this ruined tower, what's its story? The module does provide an entertaining backstory of how it came to be in this state, but there's no way the player will ever learn it, so that is disappointing. The tower is now inhabited by 2 sister harpies who are terrified by a wyvern in the area, who makes a point of passing by regularly just to scare them. While the PC is likely to fight the harpies, they would actually love to ask for their help in driving off or slaying the wyvern. If they succeed in charming the fighter, that's exactly what they'll have them do. But as written, there's no follow-up on potential peaceful relations with the harpies, or if the fighter succeeds, will they try to kill him off at that point? Don't know. Going through a filthy pit in the ground, there's a nasty germline trap for the PC and an oat yug waiting down below. This is the first of many encounters where a single PC will likely be killed, so do encourage your player to pick up at least one ally before arriving here. The player can hunt down the germline layer while here, but they will for certain run into the were-rat layer, because of course they do. Because every low-level adventure has to have were-rats in them. Urban adventure, were-rat. Going to a sewer, were-rat. Going to this hidden fortress in the middle of nowhere, goddamn were-rats! I'm tired of seeing them, and now we have a third kind of lycanthropy that the healer may have to cure for the fighter. The were-rat story is they've been here for a very long time, including before the dragon died when they lived off its scraps. 5 years ago, 2 adventurers that came in search of the missing gold somehow got in here, despite not having the stone keys, contracted lycanthropy, and now run the colony. They have a water naga they seek prophecies from, and they worship the still-living heart of the dead red dragon they have on an altar, and it has somehow become enchanted. A lone fighter will not triumph against the were-rats if things turn hostile, because there's too many of them, and the 2 NPCs I mentioned are deadly. However, instead of just offing the fighter, the were-rats may capture them to use as breeding stock to freshen up the inbreeding going on, which is a spicy topic for an adventure module, but one very in keeping with the sword and sorcery genre. So far in this module, it is foreseeable that the fighter will become head of a band of adventurers, contract up to 3 types of lycanthropy, and now become a sex toy for a tribe of were-rats. And this is just page 16. We're only halfway through. See what I was saying about fighters racking up astonishing feats? If the fighter comes in talking instead of swinging, his sword, not the other swinging kind. Wait, that's not better. His melee weapon, not his dirty dirk. The were-rats may ask for help with a problem, and not the sexy kind. Dwergar explorers have tunneled their way into the caverns and are kicking were-rat ass right now. The were-rats know they will eventually lose if something doesn't change, so the fighter can ally with these guys too, to push the dwarves back. The Dwergar aren't even slightly interested in making new friends, and they will absolutely murder the fighter early and often. Dwergar are no slouches in the fighting department. A single fighter will die down here. Both the Dwergar and were-rats are stacked with magic items, and the Dwergar have taken prisoners. There's a halfling thief, a goblin cook, and a drow female warrior, all of whom will work with the PC to defeat the Dwergar if freed. However, the Umber Hulk they think they have captive, and I say they think they have captive, because it has in fact broken its chains, is laying in wait for the chance to get revenge. So in this adventure, guess who's going to walk into that prison first? A Dwergar or the player character? Do I need to say it again, that a single fighter will die down here? The Dwergar chief, who is one tough hombre, has what remains of the gold caravan, which is surprisingly not much. It's nothing to sneeze at, but I expected more considering that the entire town turned into Detroit after it went missing. Once the rumble down under is done, the fighter can exit through the tower, through the were-rats escape tunnel out into the wild, or down into the Dwergar lands of the Underdark. The module only details the first 2 outlets, and trouble awaits at both. If the fighter goes through the escape tunnel, he finds the wyvern that's been tormenting the harpies and may decide to pick on the fighter too. One example of Steve Winter's humor pops up here. As it is written, the wyvern keeps the harpies here for no other reason than maliciousness. He's just an asshole, simple as. You know, I knew wyverns were written to be evil, but I didn't know that they were this petty too. If the fighter climbs back up the tower, that dead red dragon starts moving. When the PC passes by the body, read the following to the player. A loud scraping noise comes from behind you, as if a huge bulk was being dragged along the ground. Give the PC a chance to act, then continue reading to the player. The red dragon is slowly rising, its eyelids painfully cracking open. The jaws open, and a hollow voice exclaims, "It worked! I am alive! Alive!" The triumphant tone comes to an abrupt halt as the dragon holds up a withered claw and inspects it. A look of alarm creaking into the draconian facial features. Its jaw drops open in what you would swear was amazement. Abruptly, the dragon turns around and looks down the length of its body, half of which is long gone. An unholy howl comes from the great beast. "No! This cannot be! It was all planned so well! Thieves! Assassins! Someone's responsible for this!" The dragon halts its tirade as it turns back and looks at you, a leer now crackling onto its features. Woo boy! If you read the text surrounding this, you're going to see we have another failed lich. The ritual didn't go according to plan, and instead of their body reconstituting itself, His spirit has instead slowly been melding into this red dragon's corpse, and this is him now. Terrifying as the encounter reads, the stats back it up. This dead dragon will murder a lone PC who doesn't run away. It's not fast, so you can totally escape, but this thing can dish out up to 50 damage per round and has an armor class of -3, or 23 in 5e terms. This thing is lethal. Now, the fact that the giant rats in Germlane are still inside when the corpse starts moving can lead to some strange complications in the fight, as Terra suggests. I can see the fighter slicing a gash into the corpse, only for an angry Germlane he just missed come charging out of the wound. Scared giant rats could come fleeing out of the dragon's rotten mouth, stampeding over the fighter. This fight could be as gonzo as it is deadly. Once the fighter returns to Sternheim, there are a number of rewards to be had, and then the issue of Valdar must be confronted. Does the PC bring up his treachery and force a confrontation? Or does the PC keep quiet and blackmail the militia captain instead? The module doesn't address how things shake out between the player and Valdar, but if Valdar is removed, it says the Grateful Villagers will nominate the fighter as his replacement in leading the town's armed forces, which is really cool. With the main quest concluded, Chapter 6 gives us subplots, or side quests that play into the material and rumors found in the town. There's the brigands on Valdar's payroll to deal with, since they assassinated Poot in the streets. This is short but interesting, and a lot can come of this one. An old ally of the Red Dragon, the manticore known as Fangflight, is still in the area and can actually be a great source of information if a very dangerous one. Rumors have it that a centaur tribe to the south are growing hostile to the humans in the village and planning something. And we get a side quest for that which could go several directions, ranging from making new friends and diffusing hostilities to inciting a race war. The werewolf who wants a graveyard stroll with the fighter gets her own side quest, and man is this one lethal. It gets 5 pages dedicated to it, so it really is an adventure in its own right. There's also the issue of a beholder that turned a black dragon to stone somewhere, and there's some dangerous encounters along the way. While talking is an option here, a player that charges in for a fight will lose. And that's it. That's the fighter's challenge. Overall, I like the adventure. It's filled with action, role-playing opportunities, and really gives the player an opportunity to have an impact on the gaming world. I am split on the same topic as we covered in the Cleric's Challenge episode. I like how the fighter's success hinges on being able to rally NPCs to their cause and to role-play with them to earn their buy-in for helping the fighter. But at the same time, it is weird that a module that was supposed to be written for a single player character to go through, have their time to shine, all that jazz, is written to where one fighter can't possibly survive it. Second edition had rules for training with mentors in order to level up, and Sternheim has one trainer available, as can Niklos, and a few other fighters could as well, and they're all wildly different in personality. This can help shape the fighter's future. When I eventually run this, I'll probably do it for a small group of player characters and not try to put one single fighter through all this, because I'm not the biggest fan of managing a whole cadre of NPCs on behalf of one player character. If I were to run it for a single player, I would take the challenges presented and dial them back quite a bit to where one player character could conceivably survive all this, and given how cheap the healing potions are at the healer shop in town, they would be stacked for healing options, so I wouldn't have to worry about a tag-along cleric to keep the player alive. This module is available for purchase on DriveThruRPG as a PDF, but I have a problem with giving a company who hates me, and that's Hasbro, not DriveThruRPG. They're just fine. So perhaps look for a physical copy from eBay or independent vendors elsewhere, or maybe you can find it online. Have you ever played through or run this module? I would love to hear how that went for you, so please drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this review of Fighter's Challenge, I too enjoy it when people like and subscribe so you know what to do. And I thank you for your time, and that you chose to spend it with me and John Terra's Fighter's Challenge. And as we dear friends part for now, I wish you nothing but the best.